I watched as she clutched his hand, smiling happily, promising him the world. But something didn't feel right. He always seemed to need her more than she needed him, like a small bird that couldn't fly without its mother. I observed how he looked at me when she wasn't around, his eyes asking for help, a trace of fear beneath his attractive grin. It seemed like I was holding him up, like a crutch, as they performed their love story. It made me think, could their love really be sincere if he couldn't stand on his own? I started to feel nervous, thinking about what would happen if one day she chose to let go. Would he crumble? When I initially met James, it felt like everything clicked. The moment our eyes met, a spark raced through me. My heart raced, and I couldn't help but smile. We started conversing, and it was like we'd known each other forever. He was pleasant and confident, and I was intrigued. I thought, this could be the start of something amazing. With every chuckle, it seemed like we were making something amazing. I could envision us exploring the world, building memories that would last. The way he stared at me made me feel like I was the only one that mattered. But almost as fast as the exhilaration increased, a small voice in my head started to whisper questions. Am I moving too fast? I pondered. I wanted to hang on to the magic, but I also worried it might just be a dream. As days went by, that thrill combined with a deepening worry. I felt something odd behind his smile. It seemed like he was hiding a piece of himself, and I strained to trust him. Are you okay? I questioned one day, seeing his detached look. Yeah, just thinking, he said. But his eyes spoke another story. I wanted to believe in us, but fear crept in. Each joyous moment felt veiled by doubt. I worried I was going into a trap I couldn't escape. The delight we had was tinged by this nagging notion that something wasn't right. Then one evening, everything changed. James asked me to a party, and I gladly agreed. But when I came, I found him with another female, laughing and conversing. My heart fell. James, I cried, pushing through the crowd. He turned, amazement in his eyes. Hey, I didn't see you come in, he remarked, but his smile felt forced. Who is she? I shouted, my voice shaking. It's nothing. He waved off, but I could see the lying in his eyes. In that instant, the light we'd felt extinguished. My heart raced, but this time it was because of fear. I didn't want to lose him, but I could feel the trust melting away. Is this what we are? I questioned, hurt and outraged. James stepped closer, but all I could see was the space growing between us. Let's talk about this, he began, but I wasn't sure whether I wanted to listen anymore. As I went away, my mind was racing. Was I just another game to him? A pawn in his twisted world? I thought about the magnificent future I'd planned, now destroyed. The exhilaration of our link was replaced with a deep ache. I had to decide if I'd trust him again, or was this the beginning of a loss I couldn't mend? The darkness loomed, and I knew I had to be careful before falling deeper into a love that felt more toxic than miraculous. The air crackled with excitement as James and I made amazing moments together. We laughed, saw new locations, and exchanged secrets under the stars. I vividly recall the first time he took my hand. It seemed like a promise. Those times were real, and I thought I could trust him entirely. We shared our dreams and anxieties, and I felt our link was indestructible. But shortly, I sensed something amiss. James started to pull away when I needed him the most. He'd jest with pals while I sat alone, feeling his absence like a crushing weight. Whenever I reached out, he'd offer excuses that chipped away at my heart. I wanted to believe in our love, but the gaps were getting bigger. I began to question everything. Those great moments felt artificial, like a mirage that shimmered but never fully existed. I clutched to faded memories, wondering if they'd ever come back. I wanted him to be my rock, but instead, I felt like I was holding him up. My heart wrenched as I realized the affection I valued was turning into a burden. He couldn't stand on his own, and I was losing myself trying to hold him. One night, I approached him. James, why are you pulling away? I need you here. He shrugged, a casual grin on his face. I'm busy with friends. You'll be fine. His remarks cut deep. I felt tricked. I thought we were a team. It feels like you don't care. He looked aside, his laughter resonating in my thoughts like a haunting music. The magic was fading fast. I felt imprisoned in a cycle of love and loneliness, each moment of ecstasy clouded by his apathy. I knew it was time to make a choice. Would I keep losing myself in a scenario that felt more toxic by the day, or would I ultimately break free? I used to think forever meant something unique with James, but that vision started to break apart. His charming comments made me dream of our future, yet questions crept in. When he departed for hours, it felt like the rope keeping us together was unwinding. I needed trust between us, yet it went away like sand through my fingers. I thought I'd gotta draw the line. James, we need to talk, I replied, my heart racing. Love is more than just vows. It's about respect and honesty. I took a deep breath, ready to face the truth. Why don't you include me in your life? He shrugged. You're overthinking things, Lily. His words hit me hard. I wanted him to soothe me, but instead, I felt shattered. Did my sentiments even matter? The lifetime he promised felt like a terrible hoax. Fighting for our love was like climbing a steep mountain, and doubts began to seep in like shadows. I wanted to trust James and believe his statements, but something felt different. Was I really the one he wanted? Did he even care about how I felt? Every time he departed to hang out with his pals, my heart fell, and worry swept over me like a wave. It felt like I was imprisoned in a whirlwind of my own thoughts, split between love and dread. I knew I'd had toughen up to get through this catastrophe. I started to dive into my feelings, attempting to comprehend what was actually going on. It was challenging, but I had to confront the facts. Something felt odd. Why did I feel so lonely when he was right there? My friends were more helpful than he was, and that stung. Each doubt chipped away at my trust. I wanted a love that lifted me up, not one that made me question my worth. I felt lost, like I was withering in this relationship. Was I just a safety net for him? Something he leaned on when things were tough? I started to think I was fighting for a love that wasn't even real. Each day, my misgivings grew stronger, reverberating in the solitude between us. One day, I confronted him. James, do you even care? I questioned, my voice cracking. He shrugged. I hang out with my friends. What's the big deal? I felt a wave of rage. The big deal is I feel alone. You're supposed to be my partner. He rolled his eyes, and it stung. You need to chill. I'm just having fun. How can you know when love starts to turn dark? It starts with stealthy modifications. James often did this to me. Whenever I conveyed my thoughts, he'd laugh it off, suggesting I was overreacting. I'd walk away feeling tired. I started to question, am I being too dramatic? Or is he just trying to control how I feel? James always flipped things around on me, stating I was the problem. It seemed like I was accountable for everything. Isolation is another technique. He'd murmur that I shouldn't hang out with friends, stating I should focus on us. I felt my world getting smaller, and it worried me. James would alter events to make himself look hurt, making me sorry for trying to convey my needs. These signals may appear little, but they pile up, generating a hazardous disaster. Why do you always have to make everything about you? I finally shouted one night. I'm just trying to help you see the truth, he shot back, his eyes hardening. My heart beat. I understood this wasn't love, it was a game. I had to break free. As I sat in my dim chamber, the clock chimed loudly, like a drum hammering my nervousness. Each tick reminded me of how much I was longing for James. He was like a wild card, unexpected and confusing. I tried to keep busy, checking my phone over and over, hoping for a word that never came. My heart felt heavy, and I could feel my power draining away. Why can't he just text me? I mumbled under my breath. I wanted to trust him again, but how could I re-establish faith when everything felt broken? I kept thinking about the lines we'd crossed. Had I allowed him get too close? My heart hurt from the deception, and I needed answers immediately. I took a long breath, attempting to relax myself. I have to talk to him, I decided. But every time I opened my mouth, my words got stuck. What if I found out something worse? What if he doesn't care? I trembled at the prospect. I wanted to shout, to ask him why he was making me wait. But terror kept me back. Time dragged along, feeling like quicksand. I was sliding deeper into doubt and despair. I had to ponder about my worth. Was I going to keep waiting for someone who might never show up? I deserve better than this, I responded fiercely, my emotions beating. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. My heart leaped. Was it him? I grabbed it, but it was simply a notification. Disappointment rushed over me, and I slammed the phone down. I needed to take command. No more waiting, I promised. It's time to stand up for myself. The difference between James and me was getting greater, and I couldn't deny it anymore. Every day, he talked less and less. I felt like I was chasing him, but it was like he was running away. I could see the walls growing up between us, and it worried me. One night, I finally snapped. James, what's going on? I questioned, heart racing. He shrugged, as like it was no big thing. "You're overreacting," he said, his voice icy as ice. My heart fell. How could he act like I wasn't even there? I was pouring it all out, and he just didn't care. Lying in bed that night, I reminisced of the good moments we had. The chuckles, the promises. Did they ever mean anything? I felt alone in this fight. His mental distance felt weighty, like a gigantic rock on my chest. I needed answers, not excuses. Each day felt like a war in my thoughts. Was I crazy for feeling like this? Or was my gut right? I'd to chat to him again. I couldn't let this distance win. I wanted the link we once had back, no matter what it took. The idea of losing him spurred me to act. I'd to try one more time. So the next evening, I gathered my bravery. I spotted James seated on the couch, scrolling on his phone. "Can we talk?" I said. He looked up, shocked. "About what?" he questioned, but I could see the rage in his eyes. "About us. I can't keep acting everything is okay," I added, my voice firm. He put down his phone, and for a second, I thought I saw a flicker of fear. But then he just sighed. "Look, I just need space. You're making this harder." His words hit me like a slap. "Space? You mean you want to drift even further apart?" I shot back, rage building. "I'm here, fighting for us, and you're just giving up." He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic. Just chill." That was it. My pulse raced, and I felt a mix of rage and grief. "Chill? You think this is a joke? I'm losing you," I cried, rage spilling over. He shrugged again, and that's when it clicked. This wasn't just about distance. It was about him pushing me away. I could feel the dishonesty. He was playing with my heart, and I wouldn't let him anymore. "Fine. If you want to throw this away, then maybe I should too," I responded, my voice quivering but strong. I turned and walked away, knowing I must defend myself. The door banged behind me, and a heavy stillness filled the air. Betrayal hit me like a punch. How could James, the guy who swore he loved me, turn everything upside down so fast? I felt like I was drowning in shock. My pulse raced as I thought about all the times he promised me the world. Were they all lies? I reviewed our chats over and over, looking for signals I missed. Laughter and lovely words now seemed like poison. Why did I trust him? I said to myself. My friends tried to help, but their words just flew away. They didn't comprehend how severely this hurt. I felt like I was in a dark room, completely alone. Nights were the worst. I lay in bed, looking at the ceiling, plagued by his smile. What used to make me joyful suddenly felt like a cruel joke. I wanted to shout and let out all the misery, but I felt imprisoned, trapped by my own thoughts. This grief was crushing, making me feel broken like I'd never be whole again. But I knew I'd gotta fight back. I couldn't stay like this forever. I will get my strength back. I promised myself. I'd to learn to trust again, even if it took a long time. I'd rise up from this chaos and find a way to heal. Piece by piece. I'd reconstruct my heart. I'd to believe I could do it. "Hey, are you okay?" My friend Mia texted me the next day. "No," I texted back. "James lied to me. I don't know how to move on. Let's hang out." "You need to get out," she responded. I sighed, knowing she was right. "Okay, but it's going to be hard. Together, we can face anything," she said. Meeting Sarah was like walking into a maelstrom. From the first minute I saw her, I felt a flurry of feelings. Sarah was James's childhood friend, confident and attractive, like all I dreamed I could be. She made me nervous. Did she know things about James that I needed to learn? When we eventually chatted, I wanted to know what she thought about him. "What do you think of James?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her answer was vague, and for a fleeting second, her eyes fluttered with hesitation. Was there more to their friendship than she was sharing? My stomach clenched up as I felt the tension mounting between us. I wanted to believe her, but doubt crept in. Sarah laughed too readily with James, but I felt more alone. It made me doubt everything. Was she caught in this situation, or was I simply imagining it? Every time I met her, it felt like I was on a wire, balancing between wanting to be friends and fearing she was my adversary. My heart raced as I struggled to figure out what was real. The storm inside me got louder. Did James need her more than he needed me? I was stuck in the center, yearning for answers in a world that felt more chaotic by the second. As I watched James laugh with Sarah, a fire kindled inside me. Jealousy grabbed at my heart, making it race. Their grins felt like daggers, twisting deeper with every look. I couldn't understand why it hurt so badly. Was I not enough for him? "Hey, don't you think they're too close?" I murmured to my friend, attempting to hide the tremble in my voice. "Just chill. It's not a big deal," she replied, but her words barely reached me. Every giggle between them felt like a deceit. I felt my faith in him slipping. My heart fell as I thought of Sarah. Wasn't I funnier? Smarter? But there she was, full of confidence, making him chuckle. The worry of losing him loomed over me like a storm cloud. "Why do you always hang out with her?" I yelled at James later that night. He appeared taken aback. "I can hang out with whoever I want," he said, his voice icy. "Yeah, but why her?" I pressed, my heart racing. "Because she's nice to me," he fired back, and the words impacted like a slap. In that moment, I recognized our relationship was off balance. I was pouring my heart out, but all I got was quiet. I needed to rediscover my strength, but hatred weighted me down like a big stone. I tried to breathe, to throw off the despondency, but it stuck to me. Every time I saw them together, I felt like I was sinking. I'd to fight back. I'd to find my worth. "I can't let this consume me," I said to myself. But how? The fear of losing him gnawed at me. "I need to break free," I concluded. I'd to reclaim my heart and find my power again. I'd to find out the truth, so I elected to follow James one afternoon. My heart raced as I went outside. He said he wanted space, but what did it truly mean? I followed him across the bustling streets, feeling a mix of fear and determination. Was I ready for whatever I might discover? I kept my distance, lurking between trees and automobiles, my stomach racing. I saw him laughing, his smile bright and unfettered. It got me angry. Was he truly that happy without me? I felt like I was losing him, and I needed answers. Finally, he stopped at a cafe. My heart was racing rapidly. Who was he with? I crept closer to the window, strained to see. There she was, Sarah. They sat too close, their laughing booming in my ears. Betrayal rushed over me, transforming my wrath into a tempest. I wanted to burst in and face them, but fear kept me back. What if I was wrong? Still, something felt odd. I couldn't ignore the sight of them together. I turned to go, my heart sad. The instant I walked into the cafe, a tight knot formed in my gut. I was going to face the truth I feared. The house swarmed with laughter, but I felt alone, trapped by my concerns. I surveyed the room, looking for James and Sarah, the two who filled my mind with uncertainty. There they were, seated in a corner, smiling like nothing was wrong. As I got closer, my heart raced. They looked very comfortable together. It hit me like a punch. I longed to know the truth, but my legs felt heavy, burdened down by doubt. I pushed myself to sit with them, suppressing the storm inside. "Hey, Lily," James replied, his voice sparkling, but I caught the surprise in his eyes. Sarah looked to me, her smile darkening. The air was tight. I'd to break this stillness. "James, we need to talk," I remarked, attempting to sound calm. Inside, I was shivering. I needed answers, and I wasn't leaving without them. Betrayal pulsed in my blood. This cafe, previously my safe refuge, suddenly felt like a combat zone. Trust was slipping away, and I was desperate to gain it back. "What's up?" James asked. But I could see his smile was forced. "Why are you two so close?" I shot back, my voice firm. Sarah's eyes widened, and I could see her terror. "Lily, it's not what you think." But I couldn't let it go. "Then what's it? Are you two together?" James shuffled uncomfortably. "It's complicated," he murmured. "Complicated? Or maybe just a lie?" I pressed, wrath building up inside me. I felt like I was on the edge of something dreadful, and I needed to know where it would lead. Questions buzzed in my thoughts like angry bees following that altercation at the cafe. I felt angry and afraid all at once. I'd to find out what James was hiding. Every time he left the home, my gut wrenched. Where was he going? Who was he with? I started watching him intently. I'd follow from a distance, seeking to learn the truth. He was always on his phone, speaking and laughing. My heart beat. I wanted to assume he was just being courteous, but the way he buried his screen sent bells ringing in my head. I called Sarah, his school pal, hoping for answers. "Hey, have you seen James lately?" I inquired, trying to sound casual. But her stops spoke volumes. Something was off, and I could feel it. I needed to know more. I asked around, hoping someone would reveal the goods. I was desperate for answers, and I wouldn't let my questions grow. Every second felt like a countdown, forcing me to find out the truth. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was awry. My heart ached, but I had to keep going. I had to find the lies beneath James's lovely grin. I knew I must confront the reality, even if it hurt. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "I think you should be careful with James." My heart fell. What did she know? I had to confront him, but what would I say? Would he lie to me again? The deception felt heavy, but I wasn't backing down. I wanted the truth, no matter what it cost. As I watched James laugh with others, my insides twisted like a knot. Each giggle he shared made me feel smaller. I started to wonder, why did he go out without me? My mind whirled with terrible thoughts. What if he was telling secrets to someone else? Someone who saw him differently? The more I watched, the more my heart pounded with terror and hatred. "Why do you have to leave?" I eventually questioned one night, my voice unsteady. He shrugged, a smirk on his face. "Just hanging out with friends." But I couldn't shake the feeling. It felt wrong. I envisioned him flirting, his eyes lighting up in a way they never did when he looked at me. It was like I was only a role in his game of charm. Days went into weeks, and the weight of doubt grew heavy. I wanted to believe in us, but my heart whispered, something's not right. I watched the way he laughed too loud, how he leaned a bit too close to certain individuals. It felt like betrayal, and I was drowning in it. "Do you even care about us?" I yelled out one evening, rage overflowing over. "Of course I do," he responded, but his eyes shot away. I couldn't shake off my gut feeling any longer. I had to confront James. My heart beat as I steeled myself for the fight. What if I was wrong? What if I lost him forever? One evening, I took a large breath and said, "James, are you seeing someone else?" The words poured out, heavy with concern. He hesitated for a second, and I thought I saw shame in his eyes. But then he shot out, "You're just being paranoid. Trust me." His voice was piercing, and my heart fell. His rage felt like a smack. How could he blow aside my anxieties like that? I'd left my heart naked, and he just pushed me aside. Confusion raced in my head. I wanted to yell, to make him realize how much his words hurt. Instead, I felt caught in his denial, where my truth collided with his twisted version of reality. After the lecture, I walked away feeling crushed. But I refused to give up. I had to dig deeper. I wouldn't allow his rejection suppress my sentiments. I needed to disentangle the lies and find the truth. For my own sake. I was done being quiet. As the storm loomed ahead, I prepared myself, but I was also probing deep into James's secrets. Each truth I uncovered felt like a sharp knife twisting in my heart. I noticed his secret objectives and the hurt he held from prior relationships. Those scars had turned trust into a delicate thing between us. I started my journey of self-discovery, finding power I didn't know I had. I had to face the hurt that James had created. It was like peeling away layers of falsehoods to uncover the truth beneath his attractive grin. It hurt, but it was necessary. Understanding his past helped me begin to recover. I leaned on my friends, who told me of my worth. They were my rock as I pushed through the sadness. "You deserve better." One of them cried during one of our late-night chats. Each talk pulled back more layers of who James really was, and I felt rage boiling up, combined with a strange sense of relief. The lies were weighty, but they also opened my eyes. I recognized I needed to take charge of my story. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about my healing, my growth. The storm was terrible, but I was ready to face it, armed with the truth and renewed power. "James, I know what you've been hiding." I approached him one evening, my heart racing. He looked astonished, then defensive. "You don't understand." He snapped back, but I could see the cracks growing in his facade. "I understand enough," I shot back, keeping my stance. I wouldn't let him control me anymore. I was done being the pawn in his game. The emotional weight of my relationship with James felt like a hefty burden I couldn't take off. I was fatigued, locked in a spiral of heartache. Every time I tried to talk to him, I hoped for honesty, but he just became angry and denied everything. I felt lost, like I was roaming in a fog. I loved him, yet his remarks damaged me, leaving me bewildered and wondering everything. His promises felt like chains, pulling me tighter to him. I wanted to believe he cared, but his behaviors conveyed a different narrative. I spent several hours waiting and worried, wondering if he was speaking the truth. Each late-night text and casual remark chipped away at my spirit. I was frightened I was losing myself in all this craziness. I knew I needed to start mending, but the road ahead looked too rough. I'd to find myself again, something I felt fading away. I sought calm and wanted to feel entire, but James's shadow lingered over me like a weight I couldn't shrug off. Desperation pushed me to face the reality. I'd to accept my pain, even if it meant recognizing how toxic our relationship actually was. I knew that healing would take time, but I was determined to battle for my happiness. I wanted to climb above the mess and breathe easily again, away from the darkness he brought into my life. "James, we need to talk," I shouted one day, my heart racing. His eyes narrowed. "What now?" he yelled, crossing his arms. "I can't keep doing this. You say you love me, but your deeds say otherwise," I said, feeling a burst of courage. "You don't understand anything," he shot out, his voice rising. I took a deep breath, standing my ground. "No, I understand too well. I deserve better than this." As I started discovering James's past, I felt a sense of desperation. I'd uncover the truth behind his attractive smile. It was evident that James had mental wounds from prior lovers. His past was a jumble of broken trust and destructive relationships. I began to doubt everything about him. Each day, I felt more exposed, frightened about what secrets lied hidden beneath his immaculate appearance. I went into his past, looking for clues. I found upon stories of grief and manipulation that left a string of destroyed hearts in his wake. James's past relationships appeared to haunt him, whispering tales of betrayal and misery. I understood I wasn't the first to fall for his charm, and I certainly wouldn't be the last. With each new detail I found, my heart felt heavier. Doubt crept in like a shadow, making me feel stuck. What if he's lying to me? I thought. I knew I'd to approach him, but how could I challenge someone who looked so flawless? As I pieced the pieces together, my quest for answers became pressing. I couldn't let myself get caught in his web of falsehoods. It was time to face James, to disclose the truth, and safeguard my heart before it shattered into pieces. "James," I remarked one evening, my voice firm but my pulse pounding. "We need to talk." His smile faded, and I could see the surprise in his eyes. "What's wrong?" he inquired, attempting to play innocent. "I know about your past," I said, my voice steely. "I won't let you manipulate me." He shifted awkwardly, and for a second, the mask dropped. "You don't understand," he replied, desperation creeping into his tone. "No, you don't understand," I shot back, my resolve stiffening. "I'm not just another name on your list." The tension boiled between us, and I knew this was just the beginning of a war for my heart. I was drowning in doubt. How could I confront this catastrophe alone? In my fear, I called out to Sarah. She was James's boyhood buddy, and she seemed to know him inside and out. I wanted someone who understood my agony. Talking to her felt like my only choice. When I met Sarah, my heart hammered. I confessed my anxieties about James, how his remarks made me feel tiny and adrift. I watched her face contort with fear as I spoke. She listened closely, and I understood I needed her strength to help me navigate through this turmoil. "Lily, you deserve better," she whispered quietly. Those words struck me like fire. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. A little spark of hope flared inside me. Then Sarah told me stories about James that made my stomach flip. I found he'd a past of distorting the truth and breaching trust. With every surprising revelation, I felt a bit lighter. I wasn't alone anymore. Talking to Sarah gave me the fortitude to recognize the truth about James. I understood that I didn't have to carry this weight by myself. I needed to be strong and restore my power. It was time to act. I felt ready to face the truth about my predicament. Why did I disregard the signs for so long? Those red flags were everywhere, yet I looked the other way. James had a way of beguiling me, making me think everything were all right. But inwardly, I felt the crushing weight of his falsehoods. I wanted to trust him, yet worry nagged at my heart. The truth hit me like a punch. First, I learnt about his past, how he damaged prior relationships and left emotional wounds. I felt misled, like a fool for trusting his nice promises. "I love you," he'd say, but his behavior screamed otherwise. With each lie I learned, my heart bled a bit more. I knew I needed to heal. I couldn't keep spinning in this circle of agony and bewilderment. Rebuilding trust felt difficult, but I'd to try. It started when I finally accepted the truth to myself. I'd been deceived, and I deserved better. I contacted Sarah, my friend, and she verified what I feared. I wasn't alone in this fight. The journey ahead would be rough, but a spark of hope lit inside me. I'd face James, not only for me, but for anyone else he could injure. Enough is enough, I stated loudly. I couldn't keep silent any longer. I wanted to take back my strength and recover. I owed it to myself to break out and start fresh. With conviction, I marched to his room. My heart raced. "James," I cried as I stormed in. He looked up, surprise blazing across his features. "We need to talk." I stood straight, ready to confront whatever he threw at me. I wouldn't back down this time. This was my moment to restore my life. I felt a rush of energy in my veins. It was time to face James. I couldn't just burst in without a plan. I needed to think this out. I had to decide what I wanted. This wasn't simply about asking questions. I needed answers. I needed to show him I was strong. I took a deep breath. I remembered all the tough stuff I'd already faced. Fear wouldn't stop me this time. I took a notebook and jotted down what I wanted to say. I wrote about how deceived I felt and how his lies made me rethink everything. It seemed like I was losing myself in a relationship full with deceit. Timing was everything. I picked a calm evening at home, a location where we typically felt safe. I could see it in my mind, me standing straight, while he squirmed as I told the truth. I knew the stress would be thick. He might try to twist my statements or deny everything. I'd gotta be ready for that. Staying cool was an essential. If I lost my calm, he'd use it against me. I practiced in front of the bathroom mirror, speaking my lines over and over. I was ready. No more trickery. This was my chance to take back my voice, to face the man who'd flipped my world upside down. That evening, I approached him. "James, we need to talk," I replied, my voice firm. He looked up, bewilderment flashing in his eyes. "What's going on?" he inquired, attempting to play innocent. "No more games," I shot back. "I know about the lies. I feel cheated." I felt the words spill out, forceful and harsh. His face grew pallid. "You're overreacting," he said. But I could feel the terror behind his bluster. "I'm not. You've misled me for too long. I deserve the truth." I pressed on, unable to back down. As the tension mounted, I could feel the weight of our dark romance crashing down around us. He was hooked now, and I was ready to break free. What if I could show everyone the truth? The weight of falsehoods pushed down on me, and I realized I'd to do something. My pulse raced as I gathered proof concerning James. I talked to his ex-girlfriends and pieced together a story of falsehoods and manipulation. Each new piece stung, fueling my rage and sadness. I recognized I wasn't just battling for myself. I was fighting for my strength. Trusting him again felt difficult. He'd destroyed my trust like glass. I couldn't just sit back and wait for him to change. I'd gotta confront him, not only for myself, but for all the other women he'd injured. I formed my plan. I'd expose him in front of Sarah and everyone else who needed to know. On the day I faced him, my stomach twisted with nerves. Fear coupled with determination. When I stepped in front of James, I noticed horror in his eyes. "You think you can keep lying?" I yelled, laying out the facts. Each statement ripped through the silence. His arrogant smile went, displaying the weak man who needed me to feel strong. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was taking back my power. I felt lighter with every syllable. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to rebuild my trust in myself and maybe one day, in others. As I stood there, my heart racing from the struggle, I knew I couldn't face this alone. I felt lost, like I was sinking in a whirlwind of falsehoods and confusion. In times like this, I discovered how crucial my support system was. Friends, family, even individuals I hardly knew, they helped me pick up the broken pieces of my heart. I called Sarah. She'd become my rock. Her direct talk about James hit me like a dash of cold water. I needed someone who felt my pain, who could see my hurt. With every chat, I grew stronger. I realized that asking for help didn't indicate I was weak. It showed I was smart. Whenever the weight of it all got too heavy, I'd seek out to a friend. They listened, gave me advice, and told me I wasn't battling this alone. Each time I spoke up about my anxieties, I felt lighter, like the sun breaking through clouds. I discovered that sharing my true sentiments makes me powerful. As I prepared to face James, the support from my friends seemed like armor. I could almost hear their cheers pulling me ahead. I realized then that love wasn't only about nice words. It was about having people who stood with you when things were tough. In the center of the commotion, I started to regain who I was, propelled by the love around me. I refused to let James's lies define me. Instead, I resolved to rise, surrounded by the strength of people who actually cared. And that made all the difference. The cuts from my separation with James were still aching, but I knew I'd to start mending. I took a large breath and reminded myself, I can do this. Moving forward meant facing significant changes, even if they hurt. I needed to build my strength and remember that I deserved better. Rebuilding trust wasn't simple. I'd got to learn to trust myself first. I took my book and poured my heart out, writing about my feelings and the betrayal. It was hard to confront the truth, but I knew I'd had to address my hurt to move on. I muttered to myself, this will guide me to a better future. As I accepted my new existence, I focused on self-love. I surrounded myself with friends who lifted me up. You're great, don't forget it, they cheered. Their support drove me to explore new interests, and I felt sparks of excitement return. I discovered mending takes time, but every small step moved me closer to peace. I allowed myself feel everything: anger, grief, even a touch of relief. Each feeling was vital. This doesn't define me, I assured myself. I was ready to move forward, stronger than ever. I learned that resilience comes from inside, and embracing oneself was the key. I was recovering my life, one day at a time. But just when I felt I was on the right track, I stumbled into a terrible secret. James had been lying all along. My heart raced. How could he betray me like this? I yelled at the empty room. The rage rose up, and I knew I couldn't let it control me. I called my pal Sarah. You won't believe what I found out, I shouted, my voice quivering. He played me for a fool. Sarah listened, her voice steady. You're better than this. We'll get through it together. Her words ignited my fire. I wouldn't allow his deceit win. With each passing day, I fought against the shadow of sadness. I took measures that felt right: joining a dance class, volunteering, and laughing with friends. Look at you, shining, they exclaimed, as I felt the light inside me rise. I knew betrayal stung, but it also made me brave. I was ready to embrace my future. I'm done being a victim, I stated to myself. I was going forward, rising from the ashes of a toxic love, and regaining the life I earned. Each stride I made was a win, and I was unstoppable.